Good morning, everyone. Nice to have you with us for this Friday edition of the Asia Business Report live on BBC World. It's the 26th of August, 2005. I'm Rico Hizon. And we begin with a textile dispute between the EU and China. Trade officials of the EU are in Beijing to help break the impasse over textile imports. The two sides are hoping to reach an agreement on textile quotas that have left tons of Chinese clothes stranded at ports in Europe. In June, quotas were slapped on cheap Chinese imports into Europe, and European retailers are up in arms over this deadlock and want to fill their shelves before the Christmas season.
It's like they've never been away. EU negotiators back in Beijing again. This time asking for an easing of the very export quotas they agreed on in June. European retailers say demand for Chinese clothing exports has gone through the roof. But this year's quotas have already been reached. So warehouses in Europe and in China are full of products with nowhere to go. That's what the EU has come here to talk about, but they may have a hard time. China wants more exports to help its economy keep booming. But it also wants to know that this isn't going to happen every month. And that really comes down to the consumer in the European high street. If demand for Chinese products continues to rise, the EU is going to have to think long and hard about having any quotas at all. Daniel Griffiths, BBC News, Beijing.
Joining me now in the studio with more on this textile tussle is Simon Littlewood, President of Asia Now in Singapore. There could only be three resolutions to this textile dispute. Either scrap the import quotas imposed on China last June, increase the import quota, or just use up the 2006 quotas.
Well, I don't know if the 2006 quotas are going to be enough. I mean, these quotas were agreed in June. It's not even September yet, and they've run out. They may have to use the 2007 and 2008 quotas. I mean, the Chinese press are, not surprisingly, lampooning the Europeans something rotten, because less than 2 months ago, the Europeans were beating a path to their door in China, demanding that quotas be imposed. Now they're going to the same place, trying to negotiate their increase.
How do you think will this be resolved?
Well, I mean, it's easier to discern how it will be resolved medium term than it is short term. I think short term there's a real difficulty here. This is not, as Peter Mandelson says, a minor glitch in the implementation of the agreement, and it means the agreement was wrong-headed right from the start. I don't know what's more alarming, the prospect that the European Commissioners can't actually do their sums, or the prospect of 17 million trouserless Frenchmen running Europe as the autumn comes on.
And one European column is saying that this is the biggest clothing problem since World War II.
I know. That's an interesting one. Well, I think that you know, one clear result of this is that jobs in Europe are going to be lost. There's about 2.5 million textile jobs. Most of them are concentrated in southern Europe, in Greece and Italy. In the long term, those jobs are going to go, as they did from most of northern Europe, other than in high fashion and specialized sectors. In the kind of areas that China competes, and they're 30% cheaper even than other Asian countries, nobody can touch them for price.
But on the other hand, the European retailers, I'm sure they can come to an agreement with the European Union. Yes, they want all of these trousers, these blouses, and these skirts and shirts on their store shelves, but they also have to reach a compromise. Although China may be 30% cheaper, this will also benefit a lot of garment manufacturers in Asia who may be 30% more
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, retailers, just like Chinese manufacturers, are in business to make money. If they can get the same product at the appropriate quality, cheaper from China, they're going to go on buying it as long as they're allowed to buy it. Why would they buy it anywhere else? That gives them better margins, and it also gives their customers a better deal. At the end of the day, this is purely commercially driven.
So who's going to win out right now in Europe? Will it be the European Union? Will it be the traders? Will it be the consumers? Will it be the retailers?
Well, I think you're going to see a balance struck, because you have some strong lobbies in Europe which are resisting increasing the quotas, but on the other hand, you've got the retail lobby, you've got Christmas sales. People are now importing to sell at Christmas, because it takes a couple of months for things to get through the supply chain. Peter Mandelson's not going to want to come under political pressure at Christmas, so he's in effect going to have to strike a deal with the Chinese. But
will the deal be struck in this meeting, you think?
Well, soon, I think, because things have come to a standstill. Retailers are screaming shelves are empty. But I mean, as we discussed earlier, you know, this is protectionism. Protectionism has to go. The reality is that Chinese manufacturers offer the best deal, and retailers in Europe should be allowed to buy their products where they can get them. at the best price for the best quality, and that's in essence what's happening. This is the operation of the market, which after all we all subscribe to theoretically.
Sam Littlewood from Asia Now in Singapore. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us on the Asia Business Report, live on BBC World. I'm Rico Hizon. Good morning.